Hi, everyone, and welcome to episode 5 of Breaking Through, the Ellina podcast. This is a really fun episode with my friend, actor and writer Ross McCall. Ross has been in the business a really long time, 3 decades to be exact. You might know him from the hit HBO show Band of Brothers, White Collar, Crash, and so many other TV shows and movies. In this episode, Ross talks about what it takes to be a working actor in Hollywood and how he navigates an industry filled with rejection. You'll hear Ross and I poking fun at one another. We talk about being single, dating in LA, and what it's like to be in a high-profile relationship. Ross was once engaged to America's sweetheart Jennifer Love Hewitt during the height of her celebrity. But most importantly, Ross opens up about what it's like to have a dream, how he chases his, and what it takes to keep moving forward in life when nothing seems to be going your way. So should we tell people how we actually know each other? Because this is not our first meeting.
Yeah, I want to hear your version.
All right. Well, I walked in the room and there you were. No. We met at a party because we have a mutual friend, David Gonzalez, who I went to college with because David is a anchor for Univision, weather anchor. How do you know David?
Dave and I go back a long way. I got introduced to him through a mutual friend at a dinner party, and you know Dave. He's all of a sudden we all fall in love with him, and he became my friend.
So the first thing I noticed about you was your accent, and I asked you where you're from. Yeah. Take us back. Who are you? Where are you from? Give us the,
Did you guess
the
right?
lowdown.
Did you guess when I said
it's kind of hard to pin down. So you said you're from Glasgow. And I said Glasgow. Yeah. I've been there twice last year. And you didn't know the movie reference.
I did not know the movie reference.
Yeah, that's something about Mary.
Yeah, I think I watched that movie maybe once.
But I communicate via movie quotes. I'm a nerd like that.
Well, listen, if we were to have a competition on movies, right? And movie lines and directors and stuff, I'd
probably win. Yeah.
No, I wouldn't win. I'd go toe to toe with you.
Okay.
But something about Mary, yeah, you'd have me on that.
It's one of those really good comedies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's better.
I know
it was a classic.
It's a good one.
Sure.
All right. Take us back. Where are you from? How'd you grow up?
Born in Scotland, place called Greenock, which is just outside of Glasgow. But I say Glasgow to anyone who's not from there, so it seems to be easier to digest. And then left Scotland when I was 7. My dad was a firefighter, retired firefighter now. And he and my mother were still together back then, and they moved me and my brother down south to a place called Kent, which is just about an hour and a half southeast of London. We were promised warm weather and a suntan year round. That did not happen. If you know the weather in the British Isles, it's pretty awful. And so, I was down there until I was maybe 24 when I moved to the States.
Okay.
And here we are.
When did you realize you're an actor? You've been in countless TV shows. You've been in movies. You're also a writer. I mean, you're the quintessential, what we would say, working actor, someone who's been in the business for a really long time. And we're going to get into that. But when did you realize first as a kid, especially being so away from Hollywood, that this is what you want to do?
I fell into acting. I was a naughty little rascal at school.
You? No.
Yeah, I know. Shocking.
Stop.
Shocking. And my teachers were sick and tired of just giving me regular detention. It wasn't deterring me from all I really wanted to do, honestly, in school was I would write short stories. I would try and be funny. And I would, talk to the pretty girl in class. That was my move.
Not much has changed.
A few things have changed. Hopefully, I'm a little more elegant in my approach now. But
you are. As a girl who met you at a party. Yeah, you are pretty elegant in your approach.
I think that's a fair judgment. And so they decided that a beautiful punishment, something that would really evoke my ire, would be to put me in the school choir, which to me was awful. I'm like, why am I have to stay after school. I have to be with all the choir folks who, I haven't maybe befriended up until this moment. And once in the choir, I was 10. Yeah, 10 years old. And once in the choir, realized I had a voice. I could sing. I could hold a tune. And thank goodness for good teachers because they kind of saw that. Had me do some shows at school. And then the West End in the UK is like the Broadway. And when shows go into the West End, they tend to do a tour all around all the big cities. And I lived in a big city. And the producers would usually go and get local school kids to play the background roles. And they said, you want to do it? I said, sure. And I did that. I did a bunch of school plays for all the adults. All the parents would come and watch. And
Did you love theater? I did. I grew up doing theater, and I feel like the first moment I stepped foot on stage, something just lit inside of me where I was like, I can do this. Like, I loved the lights. I loved that energy I felt from the crowd. And then just like, you know, you said you found your choir people. I found my theater people, and I felt like these are my people.
yeah, I didn't find that.
No?
No. And I understand that most actors actually do love the theater and they love that. I was never a theater kid. I mean, I was good at it. You know, and I was in huge shows as a kid. You know, Les Miserables in the West End. Did The Artful Dodger and Oliver was my first job. I did King and I did so many of these huge, big, worldwide shows. But for me, it just didn't fit. Like, I saw other kids, and they were certainly in that kind of, precocious world. And it just wasn't me. I just wanted to know about the football and, you know, I knew I liked acting and I liked what I got from an audience. I liked it when they laughed. I liked it when they, you know, would give a standing ovation when I took my bow. I mean, you know, the ego liked it.
Right.
But for me, it was always a bit like,
So when did it actually click? And when was that breakthrough for you where you realized this is what I want to do?
First time I set foot in front of a movie camera. And so I was... I think the first time I was in front of a TV camera, I did some sitcoms when I was maybe like 12 or 13. And even that wasn't doing it for me. The live aspect, I got very nervous, you know, but I was good. I was good on stage. I wasn't particularly good in front of the camera to begin with. Okay. I didn't know how that worked. So like my TV stuff, early TV stuff that...
It takes time to actually learn to build that confidence where you know your angles, you kind of know how to work the camera. And there's a total art to working the camera.
That took me 25 years. I mean, that took me a long time to figure that out.
You're still learning it.
I'm still learning. You know, I'm on my bad side right now.
That's not your bad side.
But I remember getting my first movie when I was maybe... I did a music video for Queen, where I had to play Freddie Mercury, right?
Oh my gosh.
So it was high end. It was an expensive video. It was for MTV. It was huge at the time. 4 kids played the band. I played Freddie. So I've got all these different, you know, and I had to learn how to move like him and mime to their song. And it was a huge movie-ish experience. And at that moment, I was like, oh, I'm liking this idea of the silence around while the cameras are rolling. And then I got a film with Michael Caine, who was like, you know, I idolized when I was a child. And I was in a movie with Michael Caine. And at that moment, I went, that's it. That's
what do you remember from that encounter with such a legend?
Yeah, it was weird. I guess it's funny from such a young age, I was around really famous people. Mm-hmm. So I never had that moment really, maybe at the beginning of being, oh my God, look who it is, you know, but I really didn't. I was around like movie stars, you know, I was around Michael Caine and Bob Hoskins and Jeremy Irons, you know, when I was young, Queen, you know, and I just sort of shrugged it off. Like I wasn't, you know.
I think that kind of explains why you're such a classic movie guy, even now.
Right.
You know, you don't look at it at just like, oh, it's not about the fame. It really is about the art of it. And it still shows in your work now.
That's very kind.
Okay, you're in London, you're acting. How do you make it to the U.S. and then sort of your breakthrough role was in Band of Brothers?
Yeah, Band of Brothers. Yeah, that was the thing that took me to the States. But I mean, I'd been working solidly for, you know, a good, 12, 13 years by that point, 14 years. By that point, doing a lot of BBC, ITV, Channel 4. I was in amongst it, but I always had one eye on America. Movies to me were, you know, I'd be doing a Neil Simon play in the West End when I was 16, 17. And I'd have to get the last train home because I lived about an hour outside of the city. And the last train home, and of course I was wired. I'd get home and I'm still awake. It's midnight and everyone's gone to bed. You know, I'm at my mom and dad's and, you know, everyone's sleeping. And so I used to just watch movies. And, you know, a lot of my paycheck back then would be I'd go to the local video store. So I was like, oh, damn. The video store and be like, hey, I've heard of this movie coming out in the States and this one. Do you have it? No, but we'll order it. And I would pay 3-4 times the value for films so that I could get them. Mm-hmm. And I would go home on this train so excited with 3 or 4 movies. I'd get home, put it in the VCR, and I would watch 3 or 4 movies.
But that's the magic of movies.
Sure.
that I feel like is lost now because it's so accessible. Content is so accessible. But back then, when you're thinking about, you're in such close proximity to all these stars, you can almost taste like the big leagues, right? How did you see yourself, and what was like the vision of like what Ross wanted to be?
Oh, I mean, I thought I'd be DiCaprio by now, for sure.
You are to some people.
I am to some, yeah. Yeah. I mean, the guys that I was watching growing up, Jack Nicholson and Paul Newman, Steve McQueen's a big influence on me. The old guys, and then I started seeing the new breed, the Brad Pitts, the Johnny Depps, and I loved those guys. And funny enough, I made a joke about Leo, but when I saw him in What's Eating Gilbert Grape, I remember there were two movies that I saw. Normally I would see a film with somebody who was maybe a few years older than me or my same age, and I could watch it and hand on heart say, I could do that.
Did you ever have an opportunity where you were passed up for something really big like that?
There's been thousands of things.
Give me one example.
Oh God, I don't know. You've put me on the spot. I would need to really think of the big movies that have gone past me, because I tend to just let it go.
Right.
And I really mean that.
I think people, who are not in the business don't understand that whole auditioning cycle, because you're going out for things and then it ends up going to someone else, or they don't choose you for this reason. And it's like, but you get this close. What is that feeling like where you're this close to this like life-changing role?
There's no gold medal for second place, and that's the truth. And that's the hard truth. Because you can go in, and I've been in those mixes where it's down to 2-3 of us for a huge movie. It goes someone else's way, and that person then becomes the next big thing, or was already that next big thing. But I can't look at it that way, because, I think you'll drive yourself nuts. I think you have to realize that your path is your path. It's also happened the other way where, friends of mine will be like, hey, I've got to audition for this thing, and I've already been offered it. And I'm like, it's so...
It's
brutal.
A really tough business.
It's brutal that they're putting out auditions for people to cancel dinner plans, learn their lines, don't have a date, for 2 or 3 days to go audition for something that I've already been offered, and they're waiting on whether I say yes or no.
Right.
And I go, but that's happened the other way.
So now you're in the U.S., you're acting solid roles in these hit shows. Band of Brothers was on HBO. That was a big series.
Yeah, it was big at the time.
So what's that like? What is it like to be, kind of in that hot moment? At this point, you're like, what, in your 30s?
Oh, no, still mid-20s.
Okay.
So I came over, band was so big, it opened a lot of doors. I was in some very, very big rooms. However, it's learning the industry. They want to make sure that they're not going to pass up the next big thing, right? So every door is sort of open to you. I know a lot of people come over here and have to stay in hotels, motels. I had 5 best friends that all had nice places to live. I had friends with spare cars. I was extremely lucky. I mean, I had to hustle sometimes, and there were times I was driving around in Rent-A-Wrecks, and doing the LA thing.
Yeah.
But realistically, I had an easier transition, more so than most.
What is it like for a single guy to be on a hit show, going out in LA? Like, how do you not get sucked up in that bachelor lifestyle? Because we know you're a bachelor. I mean, quintessential bachelor.
Yeah, I guess I am. I kind of like it. I was just a professional, and I always have been. So I had friends that would be, calling me at, midnight. Hey, meet me down the Standard. No, I'm working tomorrow. Yeah. What do you mean? You've changed? No, I'm working tomorrow.
And that speaks to your longevity. That's why you've been doing this for so long.
Well, yeah, and that was also, but the party scene was never, I mean, of course I dipped my toes in it. We all do, when you first get to LA, you go to the bars, you go to the clubs. Well, the clubs, I think I went to 2 clubs or something when I was here. And so I never really played on that, hey, I'm on a show, let me buy you a drink thing. It was just never my card. It was like, the people I would meet pretty organically, and either they knew me or they didn't, and I was fine with either. So that stopped me going down that path of,
So someone you met, you eventually became engaged, Jennifer Love Hewitt, who at the time was like the it girl of that era.
Oh, she was America's sweetheart at that point, yeah.
How did that happen? How did you meet?
We met on her show. She was doing a show called Ghost Whisperer. I got a phone call I got a phone call one night from my agent saying, can you go in and read for this guest star on this show tomorrow? They've got their choice, but I think the casting director at the time was like, just meet Ross. And I'd done 3 or 4 TV spots before then in the US. And I'd done a movie here. I came over to Polar Express, and I'd been working. And I read it, and the script was one of those episodes where the guest star was almost the lead. I mean, I was in, a lot of this show. And I would have had to have been shooting every single day. Mm-hmm. So it's 7 or 8 days you shoot an episode. And so I read it and I was like, God, it's actually pretty good. And so I went down to Universal. I went and met all the producers. I went in and I had a great audition. I get a phone call from my agent saying, she said, I'm in a little bit of a tough spot. I said, what? She goes, well, the other person that they were going to hire is also my client, and now they're bumping him for you. So, back to that story, sometimes it comes your way and sometimes it doesn't.
Right.
And so I had to go shoot I think the following week. I just cut my hair after the audition. I was like, who cares? If I get it, I get it. If I don't, I don't. Cut my hair because I didn't hear within 1 or 2 days. Then I get the phone call, you're in. And that was it. So we met in the trailer in Universal. I was in getting my makeup done by my makeup guy for the week. And I'd already met her makeup lady and the wardrobe department the night before for my fitting. And unbeknownst to me at that time, I found out later that they had sort of gone to her and said, hope you're single. There's somebody coming in you might want to say hi to. And,
And then what happened?
She came over and said hi while I was getting my makeup done. We shook hands and said hello, and that was it. And then we had this, monumental chemistry thing that happens very rarely, but it does.
Because at the time, I mean, she was a bigger star.
It's huge.
She was huge.
Massive.
Yeah. And what is it like to date someone that high profile? I mean, you're a working actor. You're getting all these roles. You're still kind of up and coming, but she's Jennifer Love Hewitt.
Sure.
So what's that like? And does that change the dynamic in the relationship?
It didn't for me. And to be fair, neither from her. I mean, we were both just swept up in young love.
So why didn't it work out?
Why doesn't? Why, so many things don't work out. I mean, we had a good go at it. I mean, we were there, together for like 4 years, I think.
So you were engaged for 2.
Engaged for 2. We were living together very quickly.
Okay.
We decided to move in together very quickly.
Now, in hindsight, what would you do different in that relationship?
Oh, so many things. I mean, just now, with a certain level of maturity and understanding of, myself, number one. Mm-hmm. But also about relationships. I mean, you tend to kind of, it's this in relationships. It's, someone does something that you perhaps don't understand. And instead of actually, conversation is the key, I think, to most relationships, communication. Right. And if you don't communicate when you're, in your late 20s, early 30s, or your form of communication tends to be, no, I'm right. No, I'm right. No, I'm right.
Do you think it's just that simple? It's a matter of 2 egos in the same room?
I don't think it's that simple. I think it's different for everybody. But I'm not even sure it's ego. I think, maybe it is if you dig deep, but at that moment, it's just about standing your ground. Mm-hmm. And I think the older you get and the more relationships you have, you start to realize it's not about standing your ground. It's about understanding. Now that you might still separate after that,
right?
Once you understand, but having those conversations.
Because I feel like, I mean, you're definitely attracted to women who are independent. They're doing their own thing.
Sure.
Successful in their own right. But women like that tend to come with a stronger personality. And you have a pretty strong personality. So it's like, how do you strike that balance? Again,
that took growth, for me to accept who I was and who they were. I never really looked, I enjoy a woman's independence. I like strong women. I think it's, I grew up with a strong woman. So
your mother had a strong personality.
Yeah, of course. So to me, seeing that is something that I almost like to, when I was younger, I like to nurture it. Mm-hmm. I like to be like, hey, we can, this would be great. We'll both get our hands dirty. And, in hindsight, I can look at that and just go, no, each person is their own person. Everyone has their own securities. Everyone has their own doubts. Everyone has their own fears. And as long as you can communicate those and find a space for vulnerability, that's where it works. In your late 20s, that ain't happening.
Yeah, I mean, I can speak to that. I mean, I got engaged at 22 years old.
Right.
After 4 or 5 months of dating my ex-husband. So I can understand what it's like to be in a situation where you don't even know yourself, let alone making these big decisions.
Sure.
You were what, close to 30 at the time?
When we broke up, I would have been 32, 33, something like that.
But you wanted to get married. You wanted to have kids.
100%.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I've been engaged twice, and and both times, 100%. I've
You just like getting engaged.
Apparently.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Do you have like a ring closet?
You know all about that. You've heard my other podcasts. I can't make the same joke on here,
I know.
But yes, I have diamonds for cut price.
You have diamonds?
Yeah.
All right. Okay, we're going to talk. So what happens after that relationship? Because it's a big breakup. It gets written about everywhere. How do you then sort of go inward and say, this is, how do you hold yourself accountable in that situation?
For me, it was very... it was an interesting breakup because it was very public. I mean, you couldn't walk into a grocery store without, our faces on the cover of every gossip mag. This is before Instagram.
Social media.
And I mean, this is Us Weekly, and it's everywhere. It's absolutely everywhere. You can't walk away from it. And then other headlines came in the week after, thank goodness, that just cleaned the slate and, I could get on with my life.
Was there anything written at the time that you thought was just like so bogus?
Yeah, most of it.
What? Give me an example.
I mean, look, to sell magazines, you have to have a story. You understand, you're in media.
Yes, I do.
And there needs to be a version that comes out. And I just remained silent. Nothing bad came out. I mean, there was nothing, but I mean, it was peppered with little inaccuracies, which I let slide and, decided silence was my best option because the truth is I still cared for this person very much.
Of course.
Very much. So with that, I wanted to kind of navigate it as a gentleman. I wanted to be a man about it.
And you certainly are. And I think, sometimes it's unfair for women. They get sort of the short end of the stick as far as like the narrative goes, especially if you're a woman who's been in multiple relationships, multiple failed relationships. They start painting the picture like what's wrong with her. And the fact that you didn't add any fuel to that fire, I think speaks a lot about you.
Well, she'd also been through a hell of a lot, the poor kid. There was an awful lot of, it's brutal out there. Especially on women, but for men. Listen, there's some really, really, really dodgy paparazzi pictures they've taken of me over the years. You got food in your mouth, or you're talking, or you look a little podgy, or you're wearing clothing that's and you have to just have thick skin with it and just go.
Because it's recycled news. There's one thing I've learned in my business is that it's only news while it's news. The next day, no one remembers that.
Yeah.
No one.
Sure.
And the same thing goes for life. We put too much pressure and weight on what other people think about us.
Right.
But in reality, people are not thinking about you all that much. They're really just worried about themselves.
But you're
for the
still
most
thinking
part.
about it for yourself, that's where the torture is. The torture is not with anyone else, right? It's within you. And so that pain is going to stick. I used to say it to my ex many years ago that, she was getting some really unkind things said. And I was like, don't worry about it. Like, tomorrow it's gone.
Yeah.
But it's really hard to say that to somebody when...
To dust it off.
Of course. Because somebody's making a personal attack on you and they don't know you.
No. So what happens to you after that? You just dive headfirst into dating again and your career?
I had about 2 years after Love and I broke up. I had about 2 years of singledom. I like to call it healthy singledom. I was on a show, I was on second season of Crash. So we'd already done season 1. We'd done all the press. It was starting to garner some attention. Season 2, I was number 2 on a call sheet to Dennis Hopper, who was one of my favorite actors when I was growing up. So getting to work with him all the time. I was out in New Mexico in the desert. I had a healthy single life for a couple of years. I dated a few people here and there, and you know this about me. I mean,
you love love. I think you are a helpless romantic to some extent.
I don't think hopeless. I think romantic, sure.
Okay.
I like the idea of of partnership.
But do you think with that you project an unhealthy ideal of what a relationship should be?
Probably did.
Because how old are you now?
I'm 48 now.
And you're single. Never
Yeah.
married.
Right. Yeah, how about that?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm okay with it, though, because the truth is, for me, look, my last relationship, you know, was not a great ending. And I certainly, for my own path, thought I'd be married and have a family. So when that didn't happen, there was a readjust.
So tell us about this second fiance, because I feel like this one, it's a little more serious.
Yeah, I mean, I was just older. You know, I was older and I moved the other side of the world to make the relationship
You
work.
moved.
I know. Very romantic. Yeah.
That is very romantic.
Yeah.
How was that, leaving LA? Because it takes, I mean, your work is essentially here. So how do you say, okay, I'm leaving now for this person and this relationship?
Yeah, it was tough. It was tough in many ways, in the sense of LA was home, you know, and it was what I knew. However, LA's not quite the epicenter that it used to be. I mean, it still is, right? But it wasn't like, now we all have computers and phones that are, you know.
You can audition from anywhere.
You can audition, you can Zoom, you can, you know, as long as I'm near an airport, I can fly anywhere and be on set in 24 hours. Right. So with that being said, I was like, okay, yeah, I'm ready. And I was ready to move into that next phase of my life. And I was ready to be fully committed and be married.
And how long were you in this relationship before you proposed?
2 years.
2 years.
Yeah, we dated for 2 years and I proposed.
How long do you think it really takes to know someone? Because, I mean, I was in a relationship for 16 years, and I feel like unless you change together, that person you knew in the beginning is very different.
Well, you're constantly changing.
You're constantly
and
changing.
You have to constantly choose that
change
person.
Together.
But you have to choose that person every day.
Yeah.
And I think that's you're right. People do change.
And so what happened in this situation?
You know, things weren't working out the way that we were perhaps wanting to. COVID, even though we actually had a very good quarantine, COVID was pushing the wedding date many times. I was working a lot. She was working a lot.
What did she do?
She's in the entertainment.
Another actress.
Yeah.
So you have a pattern.
Of course. I mean, that's, you know, listen, if I worked in a bank, I would date Mary from accounts. You know? It's like, you know, this is where I'm at.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So you're dating another actress. What breaks the camel's back this time around?
I guess it's what you're saying. We had to find that common ground in growing, and we didn't. And things can end, you know, and they can end like this. You know, we forget. Things can start quick and they can end quick.
Yeah.
And it was brutal on both of us.
In what way?
I moved back. You know,
Something tells me she was the one to end it.
That particular one, yes.
And what was that?
Why did she end it? You need to ask her.
I'm not going to ask her. I'm asking you.
I don't know.
So she just decided, I'm sorry, Ross, I can't do this anymore.
I mean, you know, we got to a place, I think, where we both realized it was probably not going to be the healthiest move forward. Mm-hmm. And I think if you can see that, she was going through her own thing. It took me time to realize that was perhaps the reason. She also had her own reasons and her own life to deal with that I couldn't be a part of.
Because women leave a relationship
Way before.
Guys. It took me several years to know that I wanted a divorce.
Right.
But it was like a personal journey.
Sure.
And it
was your choice?
It was my choice. And you almost feel, I mean, we drifted because, like I said, we met when we were very young. I was very young at the time. But I almost feel like you feel guilty that you didn't let this person in on what you're feeling because you're also fighting it at the same time. At least I know I was fighting it. I was constantly saying, no, it's just temporary. Let's go out. Let's patch it with this thing. And you find your little remedies to get through the day, to get to the next thing that you're building together. But ultimately that feeling doesn't go away.
Well, that's why you've got to do that communicating thing that we were talking about, because without that, that's where it goes wrong. And that's certainly what went wrong with us. We'd stopped
You weren't communicating.
We'd stopped. Okay. Both of us. And because of that, look, I disagree with many things about that breakup. Is what it is. You take it on the chin and you have to learn from it. You have to grow from it. And it took me a long time. It took me a long time to get over that.
How did you get over that?
perseverance, faith, all those things. I mean, I joke about it now, or friends, if we talk about breakups. Breakups are one of the worst things you can go through.
Of course, it guts
right?
you.
And it doesn't matter who's doing it, right? Mm-hmm. There is a pain that you'd rather lose your right arm than deal with that pain. Maybe not. I take that back for anyone who doesn't have a right arm. I apologize. But you know what I mean? It's like you wouldn't wish that pain on anybody.
No.
Because it's confusing. It's confusing. It's confusion. It's denial. It's, all those stages of grief.
Especially in your case, because you're still looking forward to a certain type of future.
Right.
You're looking forward to the marriage. You're looking forward to the family. I went through all of that. And so I was mourning the loss of that relationship. But in your case, it's like you didn't even get a chance to experience some of those things.
Yeah, but some people might say that's the luckier version, to not go through. Yeah. Because who knows what would have happened 2 years later. Perhaps it would have healed and became, solid. Or perhaps it would have gone the same way it went, and then you're in a whole other mess.
To come so close twice as a man.
Yeah.
Right. No, because, you come close. And it's the same thing with your career, right? You come so close to certain roles and it just doesn't happen.
Right.
What do you do with that almost feeling? Whether it's in a relationship or your professional life, like you can almost taste it, but it doesn't quite
That's a good question.
materialize. Like, what does that do to you as a man? Like, you have to feel something.
Well, I think for me, we'll take it step by step. With work, no, I've been doing this a long, long time. I've had, it's a business of rejection. Everybody knows that.
Oh, yeah.
I'm also in a very small percentage of actors who work, so I'm very grateful. And I know there are many who would want my position, and I understand that. And so I try and lead with that. And I try and lead with a gratitude and be, secure in that. I'm at a point 30 odd years into my career where I can let it go. Like something doesn't come, okay, it's all good. We'll move on to the next one. Sometimes it can sting you for half a day, but then it's time to move on. Right. It's okay. It's not for you, and something else will always come.
And I feel like you've learned the lesson in it too, that the redirection sometimes is just for the greater good. There's something else out there.
100%.
Bryan Cranston didn't hit it with Breaking Bad until he was much older. So
Absolutely.
It's like you don't know when the next opportunity is coming.
And there's always opportunity.
Yeah.
You just have to look for it. Mm-hmm. It's always going to be there, and it's up to you to recognize it. That's the key. You got to recognize where that opportunity is.
Reading the signs and being in the flow.
Yeah,
I think that's very important.
For sure. And the same with relationships. It's the same thing. Look, I'm very content now, very happy with where I'm at in life. Very happy to choose who I spend time and put my energy into. Because I've often said this, look, it's very, especially in LA, but, in any city, it's easy to meet people.
Very.
It's easy to fool around. It's easy to make out. It's easy to sleep with people. It's easy, right?
But you want connection.
Sure. That's what you're looking for.
Why is it so hard in LA? And I don't know this because I'm newly single.
Right.
Okay, I haven't dated for 17 years. And I'm still not dating in that way. So it's like
how are you dating?
I'm not dating. I'm not out there. Okay.
Right.
Because I spent a while working on myself, healing myself, making sure I went through all the, hitting rock bottom personally, going through all those breakthrough moments where it's like, what did I do in that marriage and how do I fix that so I don't bring this person into these, new situations? But I'm hearing left and right, dating in LA is a nightmare. So enlighten us, please, as someone who's done the legwork.
I think dating in LA can also not be a nightmare. But yes, there is. Look, the world's changed. There's so much choice now, right? With the apps, with the thing, with the friends. With
Are you on any apps?
I was on an app. Not anymore.
Not anymore.
But, people will swipe and, they connect and they chat and they flirt it up and they go for dinner and they have the thing and then all of a sudden they get another connection. They swipe
so what happens as a man from your perspective?
I'm not just saying this because we're in a public space. I'm a bit different. Like, I think it's rough on you girls out there. Most men are kind of stupid and don't really know how to treat a woman, right? And I'm not saying about buying dinner. I'm talking about the little things, the checking ins, tell me you're home safes,
Right.
the opening the door, whatever it is, picking you up, whatever it is. And I feel that, and I hear this from a lot of my girlfriends, they'll tell me horror stories of, this guy, and I don't know, he wanted to, split the check at this point, or he called me.
I'm not paying for dinner.
And you shouldn't. No.
And it's not coming from that place.
On date night, never. It's always on a man.
It's not coming from that place. It's just, it's this thing that my mother taught me growing up.
Yeah.
If a man is taking you out, he's paying for dinner. I'll do my little things, little gifts and little treats, and I'll cook for you, and I'll do,
Sweet.
I'll pull my weight, so to speak. But I'm not paying for dinner.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
You'll do all right in LA, because no one in LA pays for dinner. No woman in LA.
Okay.
And nor should they. You know what I mean? I've always said that. Again, when a guy takes a girl out, it's a date.
Yeah.
It's on the dude.
Listen, I'm old school. I want to be courted. And how a man approaches me, how he courts me, tells me everything I need to know about him. If he's too casual about it, you're too casual. I'm sorry. But I am an old school romantic, helpless romantic, whatever you want to call it. I'm a modern girl, but still, I like all those little things. Like, my favorite movie, for God's sakes, is Pretty Woman. It's
You
like,
did tell me that. I was horrified.
Right.
Yeah.
No, don't be horrified.
It's a great movie, but it can't be your favorite movie of all time.
It's my favorite chick flick movie.
You then said The Godfather.
To my
You
soul
redeemed yourself.
because she changes him, not
movie.
the other way around.
It's a great movie.
She changes him more than he changes her. So anyway, going back to it. Dating in LA. Why are we also celebrating people's indifference and insecurity? I'm hearing all these things about, like, ghosting. Someone waits 4 days just to text you. Why? I don't get it.
Well, the 4 days texting is a game. And
What's the game? Explain it to me.
I've never played it. I don't do that. If I want to call somebody, I call them.
Okay, we know you're fabulous, but like...
No, it's not about that. It's not about that. I'm saying, listen, it goes the other way.
Right.
I'm so old school that I'll call somebody.
Nowadays,
now,
you can't call a woman.
that's like showing up, knocking
You're a
on the window.
psychopath.
Yeah. Because it's like this, hold on, I got to speak.
Yeah.
Like, everybody wants to text, and I can't
I want a
stand
phone
texting.
call.
Yeah.
I want a phone call.
That's how it should be, because then you get the energy, you get the humor, you get the tone. It's way better. But the texting back and forth drives me nuts.
But how do you teach that to the kids nowadays? And I say the kids because it's like,
People in their 20s, yeah.
well, I don't know. That wouldn't be our dating pool,
Right.
But it's like,
Speak for yourself.
I don't understand the mentality because
Didn't even laugh
come
at
at
that.
it.
I made a joke and you didn't even laugh.
Sorry, say that again?
I said speak for yourself. That's carry on.
Listen, you're not that old. You're a man. You're still in your prime. Okay. Women have it so much harder in that
Right.
respect. And I do truly feel bad for women who are, let's say, close to my age, who have not had children yet, because I feel like then they're making compromises because they kind of have to. Whereas I'm now in a position, I've had kids.
You've got the boys, yeah. You don't. You've
They're
been
the
there,
the loves of my life. So now I'm approaching it with like, whatever happens, it's all on the table.
But what is that though? Because go back a little. Because when we were talking about dating, you're like, no, a man needs to do this for me,
Yeah.
right? So there are
No,
rules for
that's
you.
what I'm attracted to.
There are rules for you,
Right. That's what attracted me to my ex-husband.
Right.
His confidence. He knew what he wanted. He did not waver for that for 1 second. And I found that very attractive. And I still do. That's not going to change.
Well, because I think a man needs to be a man. And I feel that in today's society, there ain't many dudes right now.
So if you pull that with a girl now, a woman now, does she almost get freaked out at this like machismo quality? Is that how it gets interpreted?
What if somebody's calling them?
Calling her and being a little more aggressive.
No, because I choose very smartly. So the people that I call are people that will accept that phone call. And if they don't, then it's good. We move on. No, and listen, there's a lot of machismo that I've witnessed that I'm horrified by. I would like to think I'm nowhere close to that. It's old school mentality. It's just, ask a girl out on a date. Wear a nice dress. Let's go.
If a man tells me, where do you want to go for dinner? I'm hanging up the phone.
But there you go. See, you like old school too, yeah?
No, be a man. Pick the place.
Make the decision, yeah?
Yeah. I'll let you order from me.
Well, what if he is, I will always pick a place, but let me defend him for a second. What if he's like, what do you eat? Like
Everything.
Okay, well, that's great.
Yeah.
That's great. So it's not like he's going to take you to a sushi restaurant and you go, I don't like fish.
I love sushi.
Right. But maybe that's why he's saying, where do you want to go? Maybe he's trying to figure out what your favorite restaurant is.
I think the key, right, is to make a woman feel safe. And in my case, if I can feel safe, then I will relinquish control. I don't need to be in control. I don't want to be in control, not in a relationship at least, because I have so many things I'm already so responsible for, right? I have 2 little boys, I have a job, I have multiple jobs. If I am with a man, and if I choose to be with a man, I want someone strong enough where I can say, steer the wheel.
What do you do for him?
That's a loaded question. I think you are, that allows me then to be in my feminine energy where I'm allowing him to be the man. You're more in a supportive role. And there are times where I think that also shifts, right? Where I'm now sort of taking the lead in certain ways where it's like it's a woman's place to do that. I do believe in those traditional gender roles. I mean, but again, I come from an older way of thinking, and I could totally get schooled now, in this new environment. So I'm staying open.
Let me ask you a question.
I know what I like.
Let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
Do you like being treated like a princess?
No.
Thank God you said no. Because I think that's the mistake. And I think a lot of girls right now have this thing of, no, I want to be treated like a princess. And my feeling to that is, I'm not your father.
No.
Your dad can make you feel like a princess.
Have you seen what I do for a living?
Right.
I mean, it's the nitty gritty. As I go into some horrible situations at wee hours in the morning, my number one job is to look for a clean restroom at 4 a.m. in some very bad parts of town that you as a grown man would probably not feel safe going to. So it's like, I've seen it all. I've done it all. I've carried a 50-pound camera on my own. I'm not looking for a princess treatment. I've paid my dues in life.
Right.
But there's a difference between allowing a man to treat you like a woman and demanding
where I was going with this was
princessism.
Where I was going with this is, it's the princess thing's not correct, but the queen is correct. A man should treat a woman like a queen, but she also has to treat him like a king, not in hierarchy, in partnership. And that's always been the key for me. And that's probably where my failings have been throughout my life, is I have this thing about, I hate saying fairness because it sounds like there were things that were unfair, but it's not. It's equality, but just partnership equality. It's like, absolutely. It's
a beautiful thing.
I think so.
It is.
I think that's where all the strong marriages I'm aware of have that.
Absolutely.
Anyone that's if there's an imbalance in, he's got to do all this or she's got to do all this, and if there's an imbalance, that breeds resentment, that breeds questions, that breeds all these things that eventually tear relationships down.
I think resentment is the most dangerous thing in a relationship.
Of course.
Yeah. So what is Ross McCall looking for? Let's put it out there into the universe.
Yeah.
Manifest your perfect girl.
Oh, wow. Well, and I'm not going to go further into this because I know you'll poke, but I had already met my perfect girl in my eyes. I can look back on it and go, I see where the failings were, but I certainly know, like, the first time I was in her zeitgeist, I went, if you asked me to draw a picture of who my wife would be, that would be her, just on looks, right? Let's start there. However, as time has gone on, I can now look at it and go, okay, I know what that template was. There were shortcomings within that relationship that I wouldn't stand for now, or wouldn't want. Shouldn't say stand for. I wouldn't want in my relationships now. So truly, pure partnership.
Do you think nowadays people put too much emphasis on appearance? I mean, with social media, it's so easy because I feel like everyone's beautiful online. Everyone's beautiful.
Yeah, everyone's a knockout, yeah.
Right. But
do you use filters?
I'm sorry?
Do you use filters?
We all do, of course.
I've never used a filter in my life.
You're a man. It's a different thing.
No, but I think dudes do now as well.
But now there's also pressure, I think, to sort of live up to that ideal. And here's the thing. I'm on television every single day. There are no filters.
Right.
Especially at 4 a.m. So I know what I look like. And my filters, or let's say a filter here and there, it's like if the picture is bad, it's never to change your appearance. But we live in a filter culture. We live in a culture where beauty and youth is so celebrated. So how does a man like you, who is successful, independent, you're okay on your own, you're in your late 40s, you want to start a family, how do you maneuver through all that and look for something authentic and genuine?
I call him on the phone.
All right, that's where it starts. Let's go back to the career, because you're doing something very different now.
Sure.
You're writing. How did that start?
I've been writing for years. Acting's still my number one. That's what pays the bills. So acting is still my first love. Writing kind of came about. I wrote my first screenplay when I was 19, maybe. Got a lot of heat in London. Never got produced. Over the years, I've gone back and sort of, it's funny. I went back to it 20 years later and rewrote it with my brain 20 years later, and it was very different and, got more heat, didn't get produced. But I remember at that time going, okay, the people, some people are into my voice here. And there were some big hitters, Nick Hornby, who wrote About a Boy and, Fever Pitch, wonderful writer. And he'd somehow gotten hold of this script and got in touch with me and was like, I like your voice. You should keep going with this. This is cool. So I had that kind of idea of writing. And then when I was acting on shows, showrunners I remember they'd come down a few times on different shows, would come down on set and tell some actors off for improvising, because they'd be like, it doesn't make sense, and you're not you're not making the product better. And they'd come at me and go, keep doing what you're doing, and they would let me improvise.
Yeah.
Because I was good.
Actors don't really improvise a lot, though.
I think a lot of actors say they can.
If it's not on the page, it shouldn't be on the stage.
Well, there's something to that, but there's also the problem with actors is nobody really listens. They just want to get their voice out, and improvisation really is about listening and then reacting, but we tend to try and one-up the person that we're improvising with to make our character look better instead of thinking that through. So I knew that. And so some of the lines I would throw in, they would use them, and they'd be on TV, and, they'd be in the movies. And I would just write off and on a little bit over the years. And then I sold a couple of pilots to the studios. I
don't think people realize how much gets sold but never made.
Oh, yeah.
And you can make a living as a writer just selling things.
You can.
Without anything ever being made.
Yeah.
How does that work? And why did they do that?
I don't know the full ins and outs. You need to ask the studio, but they certainly want to own that property.
In case someday
they might want to develop it. I mean, for example, the first one I sold was to ABC, and they bought the script, and then they said, we really love the idea of this, but we prefer your voice. So even though we've bought this script, will you write another one? And I said, sure. And I wrote another one, and it didn't go any further.
So what are you working on now that's really exciting? Because I know there's a script that's kind of like in the works to be something kind of huge.
There's one, yeah. So quickly sold some TV stuff, wrote 2 movies, got both movies produced, made one in Italy called About Us that's beautiful. Nobody saw. I say that lightly. People did see, but it wasn't like the monster hit that was in my head.
Right.
But it's a gorgeous film. And then I wrote a film called A Violent Man, which we shot in London, which was a big hit in the UK. And then those were both sort of small independent films that did well. About Us got the Edinburgh Film Festival. I mean, huge. A Violent Man got to number 4 on Netflix. Great, crazy. And then I was like, I just want to write something epic. So I'd had an idea for a long, long time, put pen to paper, got it going, and then some big hitters came in and, joined up to produce it.
Who are those big hitters?
There's a place called Appian Way, which is Leonardo DiCaprio's company. Mm-hmm. They came in, joined forces, and, started sending this script to unthinkable names that were reading it and showing interest, and that's sort of where we're at. So, it takes time, but you are dealing with a higher value person.
How do you deal with that frustration that takes time, because you send something out, they're reading it, this person's reading it, we're going to get back to you. So much of it is out of your control.
Yeah, you're waiting on the phone to ring.
How do you deal with that?
It's my life.
How do you deal with that? Like, what's your mantra?
I started dealing with that in a way of going, okay, that's that. This side of my industry is I'm at somebody else's choice.
Mercy.
Yeah. Right. It's their choice whether this goes further or not. So what I can do is then go and write stuff or acting stuff that is my choice. Mm-hmm. And that's sort of how I combat it. This film with Appian is a huge $100 million budget film, but it's beautiful and it will change the world and it's gorgeous and people will watch it for generations to come. And then I was like, now I want to go and write something that's just me and my buddies in the desert. I don't care if we sell it or not. And then
that could be the biggest hit because you're detached from the outcome.
Then I got the finance for it, which was crazy. Yeah, and I wasn't expecting to. I was just like, oh, just go and shoot it with a bunch of pals. You know, we're not all newbies. We're not out of film school or drama school. All my friends who are camera operators, DPs, gaffers, they're all high-end professionals, and they, I think, like me, and I can say, give me 2 weeks of your time and they'll come and shoot a movie with me, you know?
Yeah, it's a network. I mean, you've been in the business for so long, it's inevitable to form that. So when you wake up in the morning, and I'm really curious about this because I feel like a lot of people struggle with giving up.
Yeah.
You essentially don't give up. You have no choice but to keep going.
Right.
You wake up in the morning before your feet hit the floor. What do you tell yourself, that voice in your head that says, it's another day, Ross, the phone call's going to come?
Well, I'm lucky in the sense of I don't necessarily need the phone call to come, right? So there's usually something going on. That's whether I'm just about to go shoot something, there's an offer in the works, you know, they're checking availability on something, or I'm writing and I'm about to go.
So it's almost like a numbers game.
Yeah. But also, I think for me, I've just been doing this so long. Like, you know, I'm a man of faith, and I go, well, this is what I do. Like, there's nothing else I do, so of course something's going to come.
Yeah, it's like constantly shooting darts.
Yeah, this is what I do, and I've been doing it, and I've survived, and you know, I've had, you know, pretty decent success, and I am very happy with who I am, where I am, what I can do. That I can get up and, you know, ready to go about the day. I'm always doing something.
Where does Ross McCall see himself in 5 years?
I probably see myself somewhere in 2 years. I narrow it down. 5 years is too much of a stretch. I'll be in my 50s in 5 years.
Yeah. Dating, you know, in your 50s in LA is...
Oh, you're asking romance-wise? Who knows?
Both.
Listen, I could be married in a week. I don't know. I doubt it.
I love that. Like, idea that something tomorrow could totally change your life.
100%. You can meet the love of your life tomorrow. You can, you know, the phone can ring with somebody on the other end that you perhaps wanted to be hearing from, or, you know, Spielberg calls you and says, we're making a movie, or, you know what I mean? It's like,
well, it's exciting for you because you live in a world of endless opportunity.
Yes.
I think a lot of people, unfortunately, you know, they are stuck at a job, or they're in a relationship and they don't have a lot of opportunity, or they don't see opportunity for change. What advice would you give to someone who kind of wants a little bit of that freedom or that sense of wonder?
Well, you know, it's a tricky world we're in because most of the world is programmed to just slug your guts out for years on end until you save up enough money to retire, to live out the last 20 years of your life, like, you know, where you're no longer fit and agile. And, you know, it's crazy how we've manipulated the world into thinking that's what we must do. You know, we must get this to get this to get this. It's a very materialistic world. For me, I go be the dreamer. You know, if you're a dreamer and you have it in you, dream it and do it and feel it. You know, there's a whole thing. Everyone's into manifestation now. Everyone's into, you know, meditating and doing their thing. And
hey, I meditate.
Well, it's me too.
You do.
And there's a real reason for it because it's a truth.
What's your reason for it?
The reason is you can create what you... Well, my reason for meditating is actually to find calm. Mm-hmm. It's to find, you know, tranquility and peace and, you know, trusting God and feel that I already have what I need. And I think if you can get there, my point with the world is, you know, these dreamers, if you're dreaming it and you can truly feel that you already have what you're looking for, the world is your oyster and it will come and it will surprise you and it will shock you and it will, you know, be mind-blowingly beautiful. Because we're here on this earth, for all we know, one time.
Yeah.
For all we know. Nobody knows what's the other side. So there really is something about that. Live your life.
Live every day.
Live your life. We're all going to die. So before we do, you know.
What I love about you is that you don't let your mistakes or just what you've been through in life kind of weigh you down. I still feel like you have that spirit and that energy of a guy who's doing it all for the first time, you know?
Sure. But, and also, look, I've had a good life. You know what I mean? It's like I haven't been to war.
Gratitude is huge.
I haven't had to go fight. I haven't had to, you know, knock wood. Haven't, you know, lost people. You know what I mean? It's like there's people who've gone through so much trauma. I really haven't. So I'm super, but yeah, I've had a couple of breakups. It's fine. You know what I mean? You roll with the punches. Yeah, there's a couple of jobs didn't go my way. It's fine. Roll with the punches, you know?
All right. Well, you're gracious. You have so much gratitude. Ross McCall, thank you so much for being a guest on the Breaking Through podcast.
Thanks for having me. It was very
painless,
exciting.
right?
It was easy peasy.
I grilled you a little bit.
Easy peasy.
All righty. Thank you so much for tuning in to Breaking Through with Ellina Obovian. For our community to grow, please like and share, and also leave a review on this episode. Of course, you can find me on social media and let me know what you'd like to talk about in future episodes. Nothing is off limits, so let's have some fun.